There are only two possible explanations for what you're about to hear. Either it was the most phenomenal coincidence that ever occurred, or it was literally an act of God. And you remember this as you learn about what happened on that rainy Thursday afternoon over 100 summers ago, that a stack of sworn statements and legal documents say that this did, in fact, happen and is true. There was just one problem with Swan Quarter, North Carolina. It's a very low land. Naturally, the choice to build real estate is on the highest ground, especially for heavy rains. The closer you are to sea level, the harder you are going to get hit. A little more than 100 years ago, Methodists of Swan Quarter had no church. The only available lot on which to build was a plot of low-lying property on Oyster Creek Road. Far from an ideal location, you understand, but they'd acquired the land and construction began. They couldn't afford any other property. The church was to be white, framed, small but sturdy, propped up on brick pilings. In 1876, the building was completed on Sunday, September 16th. A joyous dedication ceremony was held. 3 days later, Wednesday, a terrible storm blasted Swan Quarter. All day the wind howled, the rain came down, the gray wall of water by nightfall, leaving devastation in its path. Much of the town was flooded, many roofs were ripped off, homes from the cyclonic turbulence destroyed, and the storm raged on. All through the night into the bleak morning. By Thursday afternoon, the wind had subsided, the rain had all but stopped, but for the first time in more than a few days, there was an eerie calm. And one by one, the citizens of Swan Quarter threw back the shutters and peered out at what was left of their homes. Most saw only a desolate waterscape, a community ravaged by nature. But those within the sight of Oyster Creek Road beheld the most incredible sight they had ever seen. The church, the Swan Quarter Methodist Church, the whole building was intact, floating down the street. She's never heard this.
I've never heard this.
The floodwaters had lifted it from the brick pilings on which it had rested, gently lifting the entire structure, and had sent it off slowly, silently, floating down Oyster Creek Road. Within minutes, several concerned townspeople were sloshing about in the street, waist deep, fighting the crushing current, trying desperately to reach the still moving church. And then they tried to moor it with lengths of rope. The ropes were fastened, but the effort was in vain, for there was no stable structure to secure the floating church.
No trees.
And as the building passed, more attention was attracted and more aid was enlisted, but to no avail. The church moved on. By now, the building had made it to the center of town, still on Oyster Creek Road, then as dozens of people, amazed and helpless, watched the Swan Quarter Methodist Church, still floating, made a sharp, inexplicable right turn, continuing down the road as though the chapel might be alive, as though it had a mind of its own. For 2 more blocks, the townspeople fought ropes to hold it back unsuccessfully. Then, in the same decisive manner with which it moved, the church veered off the road and headed for the center of a vacant lot, and there it stopped. When the floodwater had receded, the church remained, and it's there to this day.
What?
Over 100 Septembers have passed since the little white frame church removed itself from the most undesirable property in Swan Creek. In the process of making up your own mind as to what, how, and why that happened there, you ought to know this one more thing, that the choicest highland lot where the chapel finally settled was the first choice of the town Methodists. But the shrewd property landowner on whose property they originally wanted had turned them down, holding out for a better price. But the next morning, after the flood, after discovering the church right in the middle of his lot, that same landowner went to the Methodist minister and with trembling hands presented him with the deed at no cost whatsoever.
This
True
is
story.
true. This is just
True story.
That's an insane story.
I actually looked it up. It's still there.
Oh my goodness gracious! And from 18, what was the year?
Well, when this by the way, this was originally a broadcast of the awesome and amazing and late great Paul Harvey, radio rock star. I blacked out the dates because I didn't want to give dates and confuse people since this broadcast happened
Sure.
25, 30 years ago.
Sure.
So I don't know. Okay. You'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. What do you think about that?
That is fantastic. God said, no. You're not going to build my church right here. I'm going to move it where I want it. And that's what happened.
And the money was not an issue.
Yeah.
That's the thing that really gets in my mind is that we so often get in our minds, I can't do a thing. I can't do a thing because, and then we make up a reason why we can't do a thing. Well, we don't have enough money in this case. Or the landowner's holding out, or fill in the blank. Well, I'm not a Sunday school teacher. I can't possibly teach these kids. Or I'm not good at this, so I can't possibly tell people about the love of God. When in fact, God had already provided the right plan, the right path for those people, and he can do it for you.
Yep. Absolutely.
In every circumstance.
In any circumstance. It's not too big or too small that God can't change or move a church or move a heart.
Floods don't mean much when it comes to the plans of God. He's going to use anything and everything at his disposal to accomplish the goals that he wants. I think a lot of times we just need to submit to his will and say, okay, God, I don't know how you're going to do this, but I trust that you will.
Yep.
You've given me the directive to do it, whatever it may be. And I'm trusting and believing in faith that you are providential. You are going to provide. You are that providence. Even though I can't see it.
Oh yeah, it's there. He's doing it.
I believe it. We've had to pray in faith for a lot of crazy things.
Including toilet paper. And it was provided.
Well, you're going to have to elaborate that a little bit more, or else it sounds more like a weird Seinfeld episode where she's like, I'm out of paper over here.
No, it's not that. So when Brad was in the band a long time ago, ministry band, we were poor. It was, feast or famine. And there was some famine times. And, we were running low on a lot of things, toilet paper being one of them. And I know toilet paper was not very expensive, but, when you don't have two nickels to rub together, I'd rather put food on our table. Well,
it was a tough choice to make. It was a
tough choice, exactly. So, when we were praying for God's provision, that was one of the things that was provided.
We really needed we needed. TP.
TP, yeah.
TP. Just an encouragement for you guys.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't know where it's coming from, but rock solid faith in that if God has called you to do it,
Yep.
he will provide.
Yep.
If he's called you to do the thing, he most certainly is going to make the way for you. It might not be the way you would choose,
Right.
might not be the easy road, but he will provide. So,
Yeah.
sail on, O church. I'm Brad.
I'm Christa.
You guys have an awesome and blessed day.